What do Senate Chaplain Barry Black, actor Clifton Davis, and yours truly have in common? Stay tuned to find out. My name is Yvonne Lewis, and you're watching Urban Report. Hello and welcome to Urban Report. My guest today is the headmistress of Pine Forge Academy, Nicole Hughes. Welcome to Urban Report.
Thank you for having me. So happy to be here.
Oh, it's so great to have you. You know, the question in the tease was, what do Barry Black, Clifton Davis, and I have in common? We all went to Pine Forge.
Wow.
Pine Forge was such a blessing. I was there, I won't say what year, probably not long after it opened, and it just celebrated its 70th anniversary, right?
It did.
I went there, and my dad was the dean of boys, so I lived in the boys' dormitory.
Oh, what an experience.
So that was quite an experience, the only girl walking up the hill, right? But it was a great, great experience. Tell us about Pine Forge. It has such a legacy. Tell us about Pine Forge.
Pine Forge Academy is an awesome school. It is the only historically Black Christian Seventh-day Adventist boarding school of its kind in the entire nation. We service students in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. They come from over 25 different states and nationalities and people. And when you get to Pine Forge, there's just something sacred and special about the environment, and you feel it in your interaction with the students and in your interaction with the families, but quite candidly in who you see the students become, like you, time down the line.
You know, praise the Lord. It's so interesting because I just recently visited Pine Forge, and that's where I met you. I brought my granddaughter because I really wanted her to check out the school. And you're right, there is something so sacred about the grounds. There's just this feeling that you get when you're there. And the students seem to love it. How many students do you have enrolled there?
So it ranges. So one year we had 160. This year we have 139. In the past we've had as low as 120. But no matter the compilation or the number of students, the energy is always the same. So Academy students are known for being great singers, right? But that's not all. They're great thinkers, they're awesome leaders, they're caring and they're compassionate. They do a whole host of things, from giving shoes and socks to the homeless on MLK Day, to going to the nursing homes on the weekend and leading all types of extracurriculars. They bring a excited passion to the campus and to our experience as adults.
That's tremendous. That is really tremendous. I felt it when I was there visiting this last time and the choir sang. The choir was such a big part of my musical development too, because at the time Mr. Anthony was the choral director, and he just inspired you to want to sing. The kids there play instruments, sing. I mean, there's so much talent there. It's amazing. Give us a little history of the school. How did the school come to be?
So Pine Forge Academy is on truly remarkable land. It sits on about 575 acres, and right through the property, the Manatawny River runs. What's interesting about that is that the Manatawny River is named after a group of Indians that lived there, Native Americans, excuse me, and they were named the Manatawny. We've come to find out through some research that they were Sabbatarians who actually inhabited the land at that time. In the early 1700s, the land was deeded from William Penn to Thomas Rudder.
William Penn?
The William Penn.
Okay.
The William Penn deeded the land to Thomas Rudder, who also in his family kept the Sabbath. It's known as a location on the Underground Railroad, literally a stop where former slaves were liberated on their way to freedom. And since then has had such a civil rights impact in its own special way. Now, what I mean by that is the Academy in 1946 was founded with 90 pioneers, and those pioneers and subsequent alumni have gone to do amazing things for people of color or just the general community. An example, our first graduate, Dr. Marguerite Dixon, was also the first woman in her university to earn a doctorate in nursing. It's amazing to know that this is the legacy, this is the impact that Pine Forge Academy students are making, not just on the campus, but around the world.
That's tremendous, and they are making an impact. The whole history, though, of Pine Forge being a part of the Underground Railroad, I mean, that area, that land, being a part of the Underground Railroad, that is tremendous. So in 1946, was it? The school was founded. Who founded the school?
Principal Moran. Now, the interesting thing about Principal Moran is that he was actually one of the first or early presidents of Oakwood College.
I remember him.
I think one of the first African Americans. And so when he came to Pine Forge, the vision was the great Oakwood of the North, creating a school for high school students that would have a vigor and an academic rigor and create professionalism so that students can go out into the world and do those amazing things. So the story goes that many folks at the time were excited but nervous about the cost to acquire the land and start the school. And so Allegheny East, and it wasn't Allegheny East Conference at the time, my apologies, Allegheny Conference.
Right.
At the time, their leaders put out a pitch saying, hey, this is an awesome potential to do God's ministry. Can we raise the money? And they raised, some debate and say it was $46,000, others say it was $49,000. Nevertheless, they raised the money in a year. Pledges, donations, the money came pouring in and the land was purchased. In the early stages, the students and the faculty, they all lived in very similar housing. One such building is called the Manor House. It has been there since Thomas Rudder himself was there. So it's quite a historic building. And so they all lived in that same environment, and they often say, our pioneers, it felt like family. It felt like home away from home. And even today, that's what the Academy is known for, creating a family among young Adventist Christians who go on to keep those bonds and friendships for a lifetime.
That is so true. I have friends from Pine Forge that I've had from when I was there. I was there in the 9th grade. I was 13 years old. Yeah, I was 13 in the 9th grade. I was 13, and my best friend then is still my friend today, Beverly Vaughn. And she's very involved and still in the divas and all that. And some of the friends that I had from then are still my friends today. It's amazing. You make lifelong friendships there. The other thing that strikes me about the school is that it does create leaders.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's talk about the intention involved in that. How do you shape tomorrow's leaders?
You know, that's such a great question, because part of it is intentionality and also design. So the boarding school environment creates a mini collegiate experience for the students. They're away from home, some as early as 9th grade, some joining us as upperclassmen, and they learn how to be autonomous. They learn to self-manage. They learn to balance the dynamic of so many different relationships. Your dean, your teachers in Wagner Hall, your roommates, maybe even floor mates who don't always make you smile. They learn to balance all of those experiences. And so when they go off to college, they're very well versed. They have emotional intelligence. They know how to manage their time. They know how to prioritize their tasks. So that part of it is the boarding school element. The other element is the Pine Forge element. And what I mean by that is the worship experience, the spiritual experience is so important to everything that we do. And rather than doing it ourselves as faculty and students, faculty and staff, we push the students out. So they're the ones leading praise and worship. They're the ones leading in divine worship. They're the ones that are doing the Wednesday night prayer meetings. just last week, I heard a 9th grade student give a fabulous devotion that he himself wrote during Wednesday night prayer meeting. Where else do you get that opportunity to be a leader among your peers?
That's tremendous. See, it's interesting because I hadn't thought about the whole autonomy thing. When you're there, I lived at home at the time, but if I had been a dorm student, you know, you do learn to manage your time. You do have to, you know, learn to prioritize. You have to hone your people skills because you're living in a dorm with other people. So there are skills that can be generalized into life. Absolutely. That you can use as you're getting older, more mature. You can take those same skills and hone them. So that is tremendous. What would you say are some of the challenges that face the young people that come to Pine Forest?
So there are 2 major hosts of challenges, I'd say. And the first is that for many people in our community, and when I say the community, I mean the Adventist community, the boarding school paradigm is not as exciting as the day school option. And so many families are nervous and anxious about letting their children go off to a boarding school. They want those final few years with them at home. So that's one of our challenges, so to speak. The other challenge, quite candidly, is getting used to an environment that really espouses all of the true ideals of Adventism. When you first get to the campus, you're like, what? It's vegetarian? Or, oh man, my skirt must be to my knee, which it sounds like such a silly thing, but if you are in an environment where you're not used to that, at first it creates a little bit of reluctance until you meet the upperclassmen who explain it all to you, until you're interacting with your teachers on a day-to-day basis and they're explaining the biblical principles behind it for you, until you're meeting with alumni who are able to recite scripture, who are able to recite actual lines and verbiage from different Ellen G. White documents, who are able to share with you Black history facts, who can point to this is what a Pine Forge man or woman looks like, and that's why we wear our blazer and our bow tie and our sweaters. All of those things then help the students and the families understand, you know what? Boarding school is a refining opportunity, and the Adventist lifestyle that's a practical Christian one is desirable, especially in today's climate.
You know what? You are a great spokesperson. No, really, because your passion for it, it's infectious, and that's what you need as principal, as headmistress of this school. You have to have that passion for it. Where does that passion come from? Let's talk a bit about your journey, and we're going to come back to Pine Forest.
Okay.
Where did you grow up? How did you get involved in education? Let's talk about your journey.
Dr. Lewis, I have to tell you honestly, I think I stumbled into education.
Really?
Well, nothing is ever stumbling with God.
Yeah,
But for me, it was stumbling. He knew all along. But I was born and raised in Hartford, Connecticut. I attended Faith Seventh-day Adventist Church my entire life and was really privileged to go to a number of outstanding schools. So I attended a private high school. I was able to attend Yale University, which is also in Connecticut. And that is when the stumbling happened.
You went to Yale?
I went to Yale.
Wow.
I went to Yale. And we'll talk about this later, but my husband went to Yale, and we didn't meet each other while we were there. So you know God was in the mix.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I went to Yale, and I really thought that I was going to be a lawyer and then maybe a judge. I just had it in my mind that that's what I was going to do. I applied to Vanderbilt Law School, got a full ride. My parents were excited. And I said, you know, before I go to law school, I'd like to try Teach for America or New York City Teaching Fellows and figure it out. Long story short, I did end up teaching in Brooklyn for 1 year, and then 2 years, and then 3 years. And then my parents said, hey, what's going on with law school? Are you going or not? And I realized that the Lord actually called me not to go to law school, but to be an educator. And I realized that by having interactions with students of color who said, you pushed me to achieve and do far more than anyone else. And knowing that I could have that impact, made me realize this is what God wants me to do.
Yes.
Now, getting to Pine Forge was definitely a God moment.
But let's come back. Let's deal with your upbringing for a minute.
Sure.
Were you in a Christian home?
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely.
So your parents instilled in you the values of Christianity?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. My parents are Seventh-day Adventists, raised in a Seventh-day Adventist home where literally the mantra was, only what you do for Christ will last. So as children, we did everything, Pathfinders, choirs, search. At one point, we sat on the church board. We AYS, everything that we could possibly do. My parents felt it was so important to have a church family, to have relationships, to be in service, and to really give your best for Christ.
Yes.
And I can remember some stories of my parents growing up where I would tell a children's story, or I would be on the rostrum and I would do the scripture, and afterwards my parents would evaluate me. They'd let me know, how did I do? Did I perform in the way that I should have? And I'm laughing because we do that to the kids at Pine Forge now. It's a part of that grooming experience, giving them that feedback to help them be their absolute best.
That's tremendous. Yes, yes. So you grew up in a Christian home. You decided that you were going to go to law school. You applied, got a full scholarship. But before you went, you started teaching?
Yes.
And you just loved it?
Loved it. Loved it.
What level were you teaching?
High school. Wow. So I taught high school.
What class?
History.
History.
I taught high school history to the 11th grade. And
was it public school?
It was public school.
In Brooklyn?
In Brooklyn.
Oh.
In Brownsville.
Oh,
Brownsville, Brooklyn.
wow.
So New Yorkers will understand. And I remember my first few days of school, preppy teacher, glasses, and the whole nine. And I told myself I wasn't going to smile that first day of school. So not only did I not smile, I gave a quiz on the first day of school.
Oh, they must have loved that.
I gave a geography quiz, and that same day, some of the students who were very friendly with the principal marched down to the office and said, she has to go. She has to go. She has to go. Now, for my educators out there, I did give them a chance to redeem themselves. It was a geography quiz, and I did give them a chance to redeem themselves after that initial shock. But I wanted them to know that I was serious. And I wanted them to know that they had to be serious too. That there was nothing more important than the cultivation of their mind. And of course, in time, they also learned that I was a Christian and a Seventh-day Adventist. And they asked me at some point to lead the Christian club. So I was able to, through my work ethic and through our relationships, begin to bear witness in direct ways and in indirect ways. My time in Brooklyn, I think, has been among my favorite time, because even now I see my students and they are getting married, they're having children, they're getting advanced degrees, and they'll say, Miss Faulkner, Miss Faulkner, you changed my life.
Yes.
Your notes from my class, I used them in college. Because you were so hard on me in my writing, I now am doing X. And that's way more rewarding than sitting in an office somewhere.
It's so interesting because many of, as you know, being in education, there's this educational divide where a lot of our children are underachieving, and the misconception is that they can't learn.
Oh, that's
that they're absolutely not. That they are slow. No, many times we don't demand from them what they can give, or they don't have the tools. Let's talk a little bit about the inner city children, because inner city children attend Pine Forge too.
Oh, yes.
And our audience is focused on the inner city. Tell us about the challenges of educating inner city youth.
The primary thing, and you've nailed it, is a sense of willingness on the part of the educator. As the adults, we have literally all the power in our hands. Children only rise to whatever expectation you give of them. And
say that again. That is music to my ears. That is music to my ears. Would you please say that again?
It's true. They only rise, and I'll say it, unfortunately, fall to whatever expectation we have of them as adults.
Yes.
I've never heard a child who, even if there was bickering and groaning in the beginning, who did not rise to the occasion. And you see that at a place like Pine Forge. Here's a perfect example. We have a student. He is now the USM body president. And when he came to Pine Forge, he was determined. He said, I'm going to graduate in 3 years. I'm going to take classes at the community college. In my future, am going to be one of the Seventh-day Adventist senators that will be in Congress. And from the first day he came in, I said, Clifford Fields, not only can you do it, you will do it. And we've nurtured and encouraged him every step of the way. He did skip a grade. He has completed courses at the community college. In fact, he's one of our students who, in our partnership with Montgomery County Community College, is taking science courses during the school year now. Wow. He's done a wonderful job as USM president. And yes, he's achieving everything that his heart has desired so far. I believe it's because as adults, we believe him.
Yes,
we believe him.
Yes.
And quite honestly, a Christian environment just doubles that. It magnifies it.
Yes. Because
we can pour into Clifford, who understands his capacity in Christ, but we can also pour in someone who doesn't understand it. We can expose them to scriptures that say, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. We can show them Bible characters who faced a host of challenges and still was able to overcome. And by pouring that into them, we can help them to believe and then in turn to achieve. I love school.
I love it. Well, you know what?
I love school.
I love the fact that we have an institution like Pine Forge where you can pour into the kids.
Absolutely.
Where you can, I did an interview, this was a couple of years ago, with an author, Paul Tuff, who wrote a book called How Children Succeed. And he said, academics are important, but the research is showing that it's beyond academics, it's character development. It's persistence and perseverance and that whole ability to defer gratification and to focus and to create integrity, help them to be honest and all of these things. And that's what helps to create successful people. That's why our schools like Pine Forge can create leaders because the focus is not just academics.
No.
It's character development. And that's what you guys are doing. And I mean, I just think it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's exciting work. And we literally take that approach and we call it 3H, in some cases 4H. And the first H is the head. Intellectual rigor, critical thinking. We want them to be career and college ready. But you have to combine that with the second H, which is the heart. We want them to have the character and the compassion of Christ. In everything they do, we want them to see the Creator's designs for them and be able to fulfill that. The third H is the hand. And Pine Forge Academy is well known for this. Throughout the 60s and the 70s, the work program was the lifeblood of the academy. So many of our students today, their parents, who are alumni of the school, share with me working in the apple orchards, working in Little Lake Industries creating furniture, going down to the factories in Pottstown and learning how hard work translates into integrity of character.
Yes.
And then learning other skills like perseverance and preparation. But of course, we also believe in that last H of health, that vegetarian lifestyle, that organic lifestyle, exercising, and of course, and this is the part that the kids coming up will know, understanding our role as the stewards of God's green earth.
Yes, yes, indeed. You brought some pictures.
Oh, yeah.
I want to kind of look at those and discuss those because this school is just, Pine Forge is just an exceptional school, and we are so thankful to have you there.
It's a blessing to be here.
It's a blessing to have you. So let's put up our pictures and take a look at. Now, let's just go through this. Okay. This is, Pine Forge just celebrated an important anniversary. Tell us about that.
Pine Forge Academy in September celebrated its 70th anniversary.
70th year. Wow.
70 years in existence. And so we celebrated at our commencement in May with key speakers, Barry Black, as well as Devon Franklin. And then we celebrated again during our alumni Association, forgive me, festivities that happen in September. And so what you'll see or saw in the photo are the iconic Pine Forge Academy sweaters and bow ties. So in Alumni Weekend, everyone comes out with their sweaters and their bow ties, and it's a symbol of being the Pine Forge Academy man or woman. So it was a spectacular weekend, gala, choir singing. The kids had a great time, and so did all the alumni.
Oh, that is so great. Well, let's take a look at, let's go back in history, the first student body. Tell us about this.
This picture is taken outside of our very own manor house. The manor house, as I mentioned earlier, is about 300 years old.
Wow.
And it was there from Thomas Rudder and from William Penn. So here are all of the students that trekked throughout the nation to be among the first students at Pine Forge Academy. What's important about this picture that you can't see is behind it is the Pine Forge bell. They would ring the bell like we ring our bells mechanically now to symbol the beginning of the day, the end of the day, but also for really fun events. So when the choir came back from a trip, they'd ring the bell. Decades later, when the basketball team would have a success or a great game, they would ring the bell. The bell became the icon of excitement on the campus. It also became the icon of commencement and graduation. So before the students would actually take that last walk, as you know, up the hill, they would ring that bell on graduation day and walk up to our main building, Wagner Hall, symbolizing the end of their Pine Forge career.
Oh, nice, nice. We have a picture of a graduation took place. Now, what graduation is this?
You know, I can't candidly remember which one it is, but the reason why that photo is so important is because those early commencements were at Wagner Hall. The significance of Wagner Hall is that the faculty, the staff, the students, and many supporters of the academy actually built the structure. They built the structure.
The students?
Yes,
and
they did.
The faculty?
Yes, they did. Pine Forge Academy is known for having an industrial arts program. And so the walkways on the campus and some of the buildings, that one in particular, the students had a hand in actually constructing. And so at that particular commencement, it was the year that the students were able to construct it. It's videotaped, and they were able to etch their names on secret parts of the building to commemorate the fact that they literally helped bring their campus to life.
Wow. So is there still an industrial arts program at Pine Forge?
There is. Part of our strategic efforts going forward is actually to reshape and revitalize that in two ways. Number one, we intend to bring back our garden and our apple orchards. We are blessed to have received a USDA grant that will allow us to do that. And so we piloted our garden in the previous summer, and we had wonderful results. Great zucchini bread. I should have brought you some.
Oh, wow.
And now in this upcoming summer, we'll be transitioning to fully outline our garden and our apple orchards.
That is tremendous. We have a graphic of the mission of the school. Let's put that up. What is the mission of the school?
Simply put, the mission of Pine Forge Academy is to prepare students spiritually, academically, socially, physically, emotionally for service to God and to man. That encapsulates it all.
And that's true. I mean, when you think about it, it's all about service.
Absolutely.
Service to God and man. That's beautiful. You have some very impressive alumni, one of whom spoke recently at your graduation. Tell us about that.
So the Pine Forge Academy graduate, I have to say, I've never heard of a school like this one. Really and truly, every Pine Forge graduate has gone on to do amazing things. And so we're blessed that among so many of our outstanding graduates, we do have Senate Chaplain Barry Black as one of them. He was a member of the class of 1966. So during our 70th anniversary celebrations, his class was having their 50th class anniversary.
Oh, nice.
This class is really well noted, primarily because this was the class coming of age during the Lyndon B. Johnson era and administration. So many of them received funding to go on to receive college degrees as well as advanced degrees. This class has doctorates and doctors, medical doctors, engineers, and lawyers, corporate executives, and so forth. And so at our alumni weekend festivities, where Barry Black also spoke, we happened to have one of the daughters of Lyndon B. Johnson coming out to pay homage to the class of 1966 for their amazing achievements and for fulfilling her father's hopes and dreams as he led and initiated so much of the efforts that they were able to benefit from.
Right, because he signed the Civil Rights Act. Isn't that something? So she came.
She did.
Let's see, there was Lady Bird, who was the wife. Was it Linda?
Yes, it was.
Okay,
Yes.
All right. And so she came and she gave a congratulatory speech.
She did. She gave a speech. She took pictures. She was in awe of the entire event. And we're looking forward to spending some time with her in the upcoming year.
Nice, nice. What do you see as the goals of Pine Forge? Where do you want it to go?
Yeah. We have 5 key elements to our strategic plan. The first is we always want to preserve the spiritual culture of the Academy. Christ is the center of everything that we do. And so every single event, activity, interaction must exude Christ first. So it's important for us to maintain the integrity of that, especially in this day and age. We do want to continue to have a college-ready curriculum, honor classes, AP classes, dual credit with Andrews, with our local community college. It's important to us. We have our students take the ACT Aspire multiple times in the school year so we can assess their learning. And then as teachers, reteach what they don't know or what they need to know in order to prepare them for that college rigor.
Let me just ask you something.
Sure.
When, and we'll come to number 3, but when they come to Pine Forge, sometimes if they're academically not up to par, what do you do to bring them up to that level?
A whole host of things. So the first thing we do is we test them in the very beginning, and we test them against the ACT college readiness standards for their grade level.
So you establish a baseline, you see where they are.
Absolutely. And then in the last 2 years, the teachers have begin to work together in what we call data teams. And we use the teams to assess the data. How are our students doing on the skills? Where do we need remediation? Where do we need advanced work? We look at the class holistically and we look at students individually. And then we change our teaching. It's that simple. We adjust our teaching to meet the needs that we see in the data.
See, that's tremendous. And you're able to do that for the students who are just a little bit below grade level or something, to help to bring them up to grade level.
And the aim is actually to do it for both ends of the spectrum. Our kids who are easily bored, who get things right away, who need a challenge, our goal and desire is to create a customized experience that meets the needs of each bracket of student.
Wow, so how do you do that? How does a teacher do that? If you have 15 students in the class, and this is your basic classwork, how do you help the student that is above or below?
Planning, quite a bit of planning. And so one of the things that we do is spend an enormous amount of time creating our assessments, creating our rubrics, thinking about our lesson plans. We have what we call a dean of instruction on staff. She meets with teachers individually and coaches teachers through experiences. We actually videotape lessons and watch them, not for student behavior, but to see what can the teacher do a little bit differently to meet the needs of the student in the classroom. So we use a whole host of best practices that are focused on quality and effective pedagogy.
This is so wonderful. Like, if I had, my kids are up and out, obviously. I have grandchildren. I have a grandchild now that I want to come there. And this is it's amazing what you're doing. Praise the Lord, it's amazing. So we got to number 3 in the strategy. The first is that it's Christ-centered.
Absolutely.
Right? Give us the second and the third.
The second is strong academics for career and college readiness. And the third is talent. Talent. So great teachers create a wonderful environment that produces great kids. And so our goal is to always nurture, provide professional development, support, booster, encourage our faculty and our staff. Especially in a boarding environment where they literally do it all.
Yes.
In the interview process, we say, okay, get ready to be a mom or a dad. Get ready to be a bus driver. Get ready to be a carpool leader. Get ready to be a club leader. Oh, by the way, you'll probably coach a sport. There are so many hats that faculty and staff, they wear. And I'm always amazed at them. And I try to say thank you, and I probably need to say thank you even more because they do so much.
Tell us about your faculty.
They're amazing. I love them, quite candidly. Couldn't ask for a more reflective, honest, communicative, passionate set of adults who put Christ first and want the best for the kids. We have a whole host of different personalities. Mr. Fielder, take it for example, he's our vice principal. He's been there for 30 years. All 4 of his children have gone through the academy, and many people watching who know him will know him as Coach Fielder.
Okay.
Because he was the first to bring athletics to the school. The students in the beginning would play with the church league, and now they play with the local high school interscholastic league under the current athletic director, Eric Cantrell. Another personality of sorts is Miss Wilson, Miss Vanessa Wilson. She's our history teacher, and she brings history to life. Most recently, the students did a reenactment of the Underground Railroad at the Manor House and videotaped it. Another personality, Dr. Andrew Marshall. He hails from Jamaica, West Indies, and he's our choir director. And he does a fantastic job of not just creating a quality sound, but including band and or orchestra music, so you have a well-rounded experience when you go to a Pine Forge choir. And everyone else is going to be upset that I ain't calling them by name.
I know, I put you in a really bad spot. It doesn't mean that they're not doing a fabulous job.
No, they're doing a great job.
You just picked a few. You just picked a few for me. That's great. That is so great, because really, in order to be there and to do that job, it's a calling.
It is.
It's not just a job.
Oh, no.
It's a call. It has to be.
No.
Because you are wearing so many different hats. You are the counselor. Mom and dad aren't there, and these are young kids. So they need somebody to talk to. They need all of that, the counsel, but also the shaping, the sculpting into tomorrow's leaders.
Absolutely. And our deans do a wonderful job at that because they're the moms and the dads of the campus. And so everything from having worship experiences in the dorm that are catering to an immediate need, something that they're sensing on the pulse of what the students are feeling or thinking, to walking the hallways and making sure that someone has on their blazer. They literally are the mom and the dad of the campus.
We have a picture of some of today's students and them in their sweaters and their blazers and all that. Let's show that. Look at that.
Yeah. So this is actually a photo from our graduating class, the most recent graduating class.
Okay.
The class of 2016.
Okay.
And this class continued that heritage and legacy of 100% college acceptance. And so they were accepted to a whole host of colleges: Oakwood, Southern, New York University, Cornell University, Hampton. I can't begin to name all of them. And so we're excited by their success and their achievement.
It's 100%?
100% acceptance to college, 100%. And this is a Pine Forge legacy that I walked into. So it's just an honor to be a part of the legacy of Pine Forge, 100%.
100%. Tell us some stories of some of the students that have gone to Pine Forge and their successes.
Oh, there's so many. Our students have gone on to do a tremendous number of things. And from our students who recently graduated, who have developed apps for smartphones, who are now marketing themselves as a brand, creating their own entrepreneurial opportunities, who have become journalists or photojournalists, developing their websites, who have gone on to places that may not be Adventist, let's say Morehouse and Spelman, and they're winning competitions for singing, for performing, for writing. They achieve a great deal, our recent graduates. And some of our not so recent graduates are equally well known and and our leading churches, conferences, and schools. Most notably is Pastor Myron Edmonds in this area. He participated in our commencement just the year previous, and he is doing an outstanding work in the Ohio region. So they're doing well.
Yeah, you know,
they're doing well.
Again, it's beyond academics.
It is.
It's just beyond academics. It's the whole legacy that that school creates by the grace of God. Because again, it's Christ-centered.
It is Christ-centered. It is.
So what would you say to that parent who has been thinking about putting their child in a Christian school, but is just not there? Talking to that camera and talk to that parent that's thinking about putting their child into Pine Forge.
So one of the things I'd share with that parent is that initial fear or anxiety you may feel when it comes to relinquishing your child, give that over to Christ. Because that fear and that anxiety is unwarranted, because the boarding school environment is where the child is cultivated, where the character is refined, where the mind is sharpened, and partly so because the child is leaving home. And I know that sounds crazy and you feel as if you'll never be able to have that interaction with your child. That's not true. You'll be there every step of the way. But by allowing them to go to a boarding school, you give them a head start on life. They're like a Joseph. They're like a Moses, going out into an experience where they'll be cultivated carefully by Christ to exhibit characteristics that their peers won't have because they wouldn't have had that experience. So to family members, I'd say, let go of the fear. You can trust us. And in so doing, you're giving your child something that no other school, no other experience can give them. An opportunity to grow in Christ, to be refined, to learn at high levels, and to learn how to be an independent leader. You can only do that in a Christian boarding school.
That is great. That is great. What is for you when you go out every morning and you sit in that chair? What are some of the feelings that you get every day as you're at Pine Forge?
I'm excited. I'm always excited about what God can do and what He's already doing. Pine Forge Academy has had so many blessings in the last 2.5 years, from the USDA grant that I shared to a very successful National Pine Forge Academy Alumni Association campaign that will bring $270,000 worth of renovations to the campus. Most notably, and you're the first to know, so we're kind of announcing it on your show.
Oh, yay!
A partnership with one of our local companies, TE Connectivity, where they have pledged a $50,000 grant to the Academy to create a TE STEM space for robotics and for engineering on the campus.
Wonderful.
Exciting news. Or the fact that in less than a year, in the upcoming school year, we'll be able to have our organic garden and our students will be able to learn the benefits of working the land and get us back a little bit to our traditional E.G. White roots when it comes to industry for our students. That makes me excited to go to work.
Absolutely.
Because those things are exciting in and of themselves. But the fact that our students will benefit from that, and they'll be stretched and they'll grow. And then here's the kicker, that exposure will help them become their ultimate best selves. That makes me even more excited.
Oh, that's so great. So let's come back to you again, because this whole idea of, you know, your excitement, your passion about these young people, it so shows. When I brought my granddaughter to meet you, you were just so personal and so real and just so lovely toward her. And I just feel like this is the person that needs to be sitting in that chair. This is a calling. It's so obvious to me that you were called to do what you're doing. How did you get to Pine Forge from being, just teaching.
Yeah.
How did you get there?
Well, what I will say before I answer that is that's actually one of the toughest parts of the job, is because when you're a headmaster or principal, you actually spend most of your time with adults. And I love them to death. It's great. But sometimes you miss that classroom interaction.
Yes.
So I'll walk down the hall and I'm like, "Hi, honey. How's it going, sweetheart?" And the kids are like, "Why is she so happy to see us in the hallway?" It's because I miss that interaction, because as headmistress, you spend most of your day working with adults, which is great too. But back to your point, literally the Lord spoke to me, and I'm not saying that in a facetious way. I mean, with all candor. I was a principal in Trenton, New Jersey, at a charter high school that I had founded. And I'd been at that school for about 4.5, 5 years. And I felt one particular day restless in my spirit, so much so that I felt the Holy Spirit say, "Go home." And it was the summer, so there were no kids on the campus. I went home. I left Trenton, drove all the way to my home in Philadelphia, and I had been reading a fictionalized account of Joseph at the time. And I plopped down on the couch and I started reading it, and the Holy Spirit said, "No, I want you to spend time with me. I want you to pray." And so I immediately began to pray. And this particular prayer, I guess, made me feel a little sleepy because I fell asleep. And 2 hours literally to the dot later, a girlfriend called and woke me up. I said, "Hi." She said, "Hey, I'm thinking about you, and I felt impressed to call you. Do you know that Pine Forge Academy is looking for a principal?" I said, "No, I didn't know that." And after we got off the phone, I said, "Is that why you disturbed my spirit, Lord? Is that why you sent me home early, Lord?" And I prayed about it, and the overwhelming peace of mind that came to me, I knew right away. So I went back to work the next day. Thankfully, it was the summer, and I said, "It is so unorthodox, and I don't want to feel like I'm leaving the school at a lurch. I've trained these vice principals to take my place if I'm ever to leave, and I feel that God's calling me to leave." Now, the interesting part about that is I had met Superintendent Dent. Love her. She's awesome.
Oh, she is.
She's awesome.
She and I went to Oakwood together.
So you know her.
Oh, I
She's
know
awesome.
her. She's wonderful.
I had met her through another school project, unrelated, a few months previous. And I found out after I applied and earned the position or received the position, that when she saw my name come through the application, she and a few colleagues began to walk the school at Pine Forge 7 times a day, praying that the Lord would send me, move on my heart, and send me to the academy.
She already knew you?
She had known me from one brief interaction with another Adventist school project in the city of Philadelphia. And the Lord had impressed her, pray that this girl will come. And it literally, I can't even speak. It literally gives me shivers to think about that. It just gives me, that's how I ended up at Pine Forge.
Walking around the school and praying.
And
walking
praying.
around 7 times.
7 times. 7 times. She said, when my application came through, she said, "Is this whom you're sending, Lord?" And she prayed. And as she was praying, I was answering prayer. I didn't think about Pine Forge until the Lord said, it's time to go. It's time to go.
Wow, what a great story. What a great story. So, how long have you been there?
2.5 years now. Yes.
You are outstanding. And while there, you have another great part of your story. Tell us about the personal side.
Well, while there, before arriving at Pine Forge, I met my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time. So while there, I have married my husband, Nicole Hughes, who also attended Yale University. We overlapped by 2 years.
How did you meet him?
We lived in adjacent dorms at Yale. He's from Connecticut and I'm from Connecticut, and we still didn't meet.
And was he Adventist?
No.
Okay.
And so I think that's just God. We literally met in a Barnes & Noble's Starbucks in Philadelphia at the bookstore.
Wow.
At the bookstore. We had a mutual colleague who ended up performing at our wedding, but that's how we met. And so while at Pine Forge, married my husband, and literally had a honeymoon baby. Within 11 months of our wedding, we had our first son, who's now almost 5 months old.
That is so sweet. So you're a new mom,
A new wife.
and
a new principal.
Your plate isn't full.
It is full. It is full. And, you know, I have to say, my hat's off to every working mom out there. I've learned so much about myself.
What have you learned?
You know, I've learned that sometimes you want to do it all. As a professional and as a woman and as an ambitious young person, and that you have to draw close to Christ to learn what to prioritize and what will have the greatest impact, and quite candidly what he wants you to do versus what you want to do. So new motherhood has really been teaching me how to balance, how to prioritize, how to make time for my personal time with Christ, separate from my family time with Christ. And then quite candidly, I think that it's also helping me to understand how to empathize with others in a way that I never could have imagined before. I've always loved kids, and I've always been very careful to treat other people's children as the gems that they are. But when you have your own, you take that even more seriously, because I want everyone to treat my own little precious son like the wonderful child of God that he is. And so it makes me even that much more conscientious to do the same with every child at Pine Forge.
Ah, that's so good. How do you discipline the students? If a student is really out of control, like what are some of the modes of discipline that you use there?
Well, there's so many rules or so many means rather, because children are different. And so we can't treat children equally. We have to treat them equitably, giving them each what they need. So we operate within the context of the rules, of course, but we do try our best to hold the bar, knowing that they'll rise to the bar. But at the same time, we try to listen and hear and be willing to compromise. Now, let me be very careful what I mean by that. We have something at the Academy called Dean's Council. Faculty and staff sit on the Dean's Council, and they administer a consequence based on the behavior. And a parent also sits on that council. Last school year, after speaking with me, the USM officer and president said, Mrs. Hughes, we think we would like a hand in it as well. And so we went back to the student body constitution and read that there is a student disciplinary council as well. And so we began to train them to actually hear cases and then administer what we call restorative justice. Colleagues, students, hearing each other, advising and counseling each other, and then, of course, with faculty approval, administering a preset consequence of sorts. Last school, we found that it worked very well. It allowed the students to have buy-in to the culture, the rules, and the framework of the school.
Really good, really good. So is there like a time out? You know, is there, I'm just trying to get a sense of, because the natural inclination is, okay, so if my kid is out of control, what's gonna happen again?
Yeah.
There's a fear, you know, like how is he or she gonna be brought back into
the fold.
Yeah.
So we do try to do things in a way that's compassionate, has the character of Christ. What I mean by that is before, the first system is called the demerit system. Before a student can receive a demerit for any infraction, every faculty member, including me, we're asked to take 24 hours to really pause, think, pray, before we administer the demerit or the discipline. The idea is that we never want to consequence or punish in anger or in emotion. That's not how Christ operated. Now, once those demerits are administered, they have a range of consequences depending on the size. It might just be a warning, you've got some demerits. It might be you have too many demerits, you can't go to open rec or the Saturday night activity. It might be you have quite a few demerits and you need to go to Dean's Council. And you might need to go home to reflect for a little bit. But it ranges. But we try to really start small. having those conversations, having those relationships where as adults we can really talk with you and help you to understand, and then having someone on the campus who can be your liaison, who can mediate for you. And quite frankly, that usually ends up being one of the vice principals or one of the deans. But we're trying actually this school year not just to focus on demerits, but also focus on merits.
Okay.
Because there are so many more students doing what they're supposed to. There are so many more hidden warriors and heroes who are always doing the right thing. You can ask them, what would Jesus do? And they're doing it.
That's so
And for
good.
those students, we're trying to focus on awarding them with merits, giving them incentives, allowing them to have benefits on campus that others might not have because they've earned it.
That is so good. So your whole goal really for taking the school to the next level is to stay focused on Christ, and then the 3 H's, right? And then you just want to see your kids succeed. That just seems to be where your heart is. Let's see these kids be their best, the best that they can be. What students do you have that you could talk about in these last couple of minutes that stand out as just, they started not achieving and ended up being super achievers?
There are a host of them.
Give us one.
There's one I'm thinking of right now who recently graduated, and he's now at Lincoln University. I'm smiling because he would come to my office or go to the dean's office and complain about a few teachers. And his complaint was they were pushing him too hard, or the work was too much, or he didn't like so-and-so's tone of voice, or whatever it would be. And I'm laughing and smiling because he would really give some of our teachers a run for their money. And just as he was probably sharing some words with the deans, the teachers are probably sharing some words with me. What are we going to do with so-and-so? What are we going to do about such and such? Now, I'm smiling so hard because when we visited him and his colleagues who are at Lincoln University, our whole staff went. We went to meet our alumni, our recent alumni, and say to them, what are we doing well? And what do we need to do differently?
Nice.
You are our product. You're in college now. Based on our training, what could we do better and what do we do well? And he paused for a little bit among the group of 4 students, and then he said, I would like to say that you guys do a really good job disciplining. We all laughed, and he said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, well, I don't just mean the discipline part. I just mean that you were so tough and hard on us that now I see it was all worth it. And everything that you've instilled in me, I'm actually doing now in college. So I tell you, don't change that part.
That's great, that's great. I want to put your address up real quick on the screen because folks are going to want to, they're going to want to get in touch with you. You can reach Nicole Hughes at Pine Forge Academy by going to the website, pineforgeacademy.org, or email pfa@pineforgeacademy.org, or call 610-326-5800, or again, 610-326-5800. Thank you so much, my dear, for visiting and for just sharing your insight. It was absolutely wonderful. May God bless you. And may God bless you. Join us next time, because you know what? It just wouldn't be the same without you.